Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? It's Matt here from YoVideogames, and I'm here to talk again about one of my most anticipated games of the year coming out, and that, of course, is Rime. Now, this past weekend, PAX South was held in Texas, and guess what? They had a playable build of the game on their show floor. So you know what that means? I got to play it. So, we finally get hands-on. So, that should answer all the questions right then and there. Is the game real? Is it playable? Is it all smoke and mirrors? Well, hey, it is real. It is playable. I've played it. It's awesome. Well, that's the short version of it. What we had at the show floor was pretty cool because you basically got to go sit in a sort of little cubicle, as it were, put on some headphones, and be totally just immersed in their experience, which, you know, I'm fine with because I want to be immersed in this game. Unfortunately, right off the bat, I gotta say, though, that the demo that Hands-On played was not a full build of the game or a beta. It was a about 12-minute long demo that only had a specific part of the game, and that specific part of the game was not the fucking beach, sadly. But what we did get to see was probably something more closer to what the core of the game is going to be, and that, of course, is the puzzle element to it. So what were we playing? We were playing as the boy running around these very white Mediterranean-style ruins on this island, and he was solving a series of puzzles to basically open doors, make platforms raise, and generally progress the story. Although, I have to say right off the bat that one of the interesting things about the game is that there was no dialogue or cutscenes, like not in the Naughty Dog traditional sense of accomplish this task, okay, here's your reward, enjoy this movie. It's all just sort of built in, free-flowing. So that's actually one of the things that made me kind of intrigued. Another thing is that there's no signposting, there's no text. When you are able to interact with an object, you will see a button prompt come on screen, but you're not ever stopped, and then a character stops, like the fox doesn't come up and say, "Hey, boy, I need to tell you, you can press X to jump." Like, there wasn't any of that bullshit in it, which is actually pretty cool. Maybe there will be in the beginning, but I doubt it. I think that the idea of the game is that it's going to have this very natural feeling to it. If you want a game that it's actually kind of similar in that regards too, play the Wii version of A Boy and His Blob, which is by Sean Valesco, director of Shovel Knight, and beautiful fucking 2D game. Now, they don't play alike, but they are both puzzle-heavy games, and they both rely on just visual cues. So the game is just trying to cue you in visually on how to solve all these puzzles. So, as noted, though, there is no action button in this game. There's no hit button. There's no combat. You can shout, and the shout can make certain objects glow and interact and stuff like that. So that's actually pretty cool. One of the interesting feelings I got running around these ruins is that it evoked a sense of the old game Myst. Not in its play style, but just in kind of its mood, but just kind of done a million billion times better. Just from the advent of technology, the fact that it's a 3D third-person game, and the fact that it's a lot more colorful and inviting to play around in. One of the really cool things is that as you solved puzzles, or as you ran around these ruins, you might have noticed a mural or something like that, and it sort of depicts something, I don't know what, but it depicts something to do with maybe the boy's past, or maybe the past of the ruins, possibly. It's really hard to tell. Again, we're talking like 10 to 12 minutes. But it was interesting because it seems that the way they want to tell this story is a lot like Journey or Abzu, in the sense where you're going to run through the game and you're going to see and witness things, and that sort of tells you what's going on. But I think there's more to it than that, because I think there's more definitive imagery that you see that blatantly, not blatantly, but just more in line, is more in focus than, say, Abzu in particular, which was just very, just sort of like, you're just a diving thing, and then you kind of sort of see hieroglyphics and stuff, and you're not really sure. You just know that machines are bad. But I think there's something different here. Now, I know they're probably not going to be happy about this, but if you remember the Edge article from way back when the game was a Sony title, I have a feeling that there's a more personal, more higher-reaching storyline going on. Like basically what I'm saying is what this game is really about is probably closer to something like Limbo or Inside, I believe is the name of their recent game, where it's got a very deep personal meaning behind the storyline. It's not just, hey, you woke up on this island and there's machines. Machines are bad. Get rid of machines. Like I think it's very much more personal. I think it's definitely something closer to akin to Limbo in that regards. But I mean, that's kind of speculation going from the murals I've seen and the way the story's presented, and then going back to the Edge article from way back a couple years ago, which I would say probably don't read that if you don't want to get spoiled, because apparently it does kind of spoil the sort of experience of the game, so don't read it if you haven't already. I know what it is, so I'm kind of like whatever about it, so I'm just intrigued. One thing, though, and I said this in our recent podcast, one thing that's most intriguing about Rime is that you don't miss the ability to fight. Like, there's not like there's really enemies roaming around. There was no villains. There was no things that were trying to hunt you down. You didn't have to stealth through anything. Although it seems like with the bird thing, there might be some stealth stuff later on. I don't know, but you didn't miss combat. One, because there wasn't really anything to fight, and two, just the mood, the atmosphere, and the progression of puzzles in the game. You don't sit there and think, oh, gee, I really wish I could whack something over the head or rip something's eyeballs out here. You just don't miss it because you don't need it, because it's not important. What's important is discovery and solving puzzles in this game. And to me, I think that's one of the greatest things about it, and possibly one of the best examples, like we said in our recent podcast, about can you make a game compelling without violence or heavy conflict. And I think I'm seeing it already in Rime. I don't know, who knows. Again, we are talking about a short demo, so will this carry over into the full game? That's kind of impossible to tell at this point, but let's say that it does. Let's say that the first impression from this hands-on carries through to the full game and it's just as good. Then we really have something special on our hands. We really have something that can speak to different people and across generations and across age gaps, and that's a really great thing, and it's not Wii Bowling. But getting back to the game itself, I do wish I could have seen more of the island itself, which we didn't really get to see. You can kind of see it in videos from IGN, which is cool. But the problem and also the good thing was, I think they knew that if I was going to get a hold of the game and I was able to run around the whole island area or whatever, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna spend way too much time combing the beaches, and there's probably plenty of people like me who are gonna do that, and they got to keep the line moving because the line capped out like almost immediately every day. So that being said, as for how are the puzzles? Well, again, this is the early area of the game. The puzzles weren't brain scratchers, but they were good. And then you got to the end, at least the end of the demo area, and there was this absolutely fucking wonderful puzzle. And I don't want to describe it because I don't want to give any hints away. And I'm sure some people will figure it out really quickly, but for me, it wasn't so much that I didn't really get, I was only stumped for a little tiny bit, but when the aha moment, the moment where you hear the Zelda chime go off in your head, that moment was so great because solving that puzzle was like, holy shit, that's really fucking clever. And again, that was kind of near the end of the beginning area, and if the rest of the game can build off of that and go even further and more challenging than that, we're going to see a fucking great puzzle game. And I know one thing that the developers talked about at the show floor was that they wanted to try to streamline the puzzle and experience, so it's not just like a dungeon room puzzle, cutscene, puzzle, cutscene. So again, no cutscenes, and it's not. It feels less segmented. It doesn't feel like I'm in the designated room, puzzle solving room. It feels more. It feels more natural. So basically, what I'm saying here, the level design is really good. Not only is the architecture good, and of course the art style is good, but the level design's good because it feels more natural. And I guess the last thing is that we don't know what's going on, but there is the Fox character who you see running ahead, and there's this other cloaked character who looks like a Journey character. He's wearing like an all red robe, but he has like completely shaded features. Like he's like a ghost, like a dark gray or a black ghost with a red hood. And he seems to be observing you, and you run towards him, and he walks into a building and kind of disappears. And I don't know what the fuck that's about. Now, I'm sure that's sort of going to be a sort of carrot on a stick that's going to dangle in front of you in the final game, and you're going to run after him. As far as the controls go, well, they control exactly as you want it to. It's more snappier, it's more precise than Team Eco games, so it's better than that. You know, it's about as good as Zelda, I guess you could say, as far as just movement and general climbing and stuff goes. You know, you'll see some of the sort of Uncharted-y, you know, ledge and vine grabbing stuff in the game, and it all feels natural. Like, I have no complaints about controls, but they're very minimalistic. You know, it's moving, running, jumping, grabbing, climbing, shimmying, and of course the shout button. And then I'm sure there'll be other puzzles where you also interact with other things using other methods, such as, because like you can see in some footage too where you pick up like a key and he just puts the key on his belt, and it's visual. Like you don't have like a pause menu. There's no inventory screen. You literally see this sort of horseshoe key on his belt, and then when he goes up to a door, he takes it off his belt and puts it in the door. So it seems like you might acquire items, but they're not going to be like this building inventory. You're not going to have this fucking Resident Evil 4 briefcase box full of shit. It's literally like, oh, I have a key, and I use this key until I get to the locked door, and then immediately it's gone from there. So, not too worried about that. I'm not a fan of puzzles that generally require you to just sort of build inventory. So, I mean, maybe there'll be that in the game. Who knows? But everything we've seen so far looks great. I'll say the last thing I should talk about, I guess, is the music. And you hear it in the latest trailer, and it's great. It's very evocative, emotional. What I like about it is that it seems to really be selling the mood of the game. Because it is a bright, sunny atmosphere, but there is a sort of a tinge of sadness or emptiness a bit. And the music has these emotional swells. It's not just like, you know, the Zelda, noise, you know, as I've already demonstrated, not just that, but like it's playing a full music track, and as you are solving things, the music swells and builds up as you start making actual progression in the game. So it's actually very clever in a way. It's like the evolution of the aha jingle from Zelda. So that's very, very cool, and I'm super excited about this game. And I can't remember a time where I had so much good stuff coming out in so little time, because I've got Zelda in March, Yooka-Laylee in April, and then Rime in May, and then Sonic Mania somewhere in the middle there, and a bunch of other fucking games to play as well. But the crazy thing is it's in my mind right now, the one I keep drifting back to is Rime. And that seems sacrilegious with Zelda so much closer, but I don't know, man. There's something about the way that game just sort of looked and felt, and the fact that it was emphasis on puzzles, and that last puzzle in the demo was so fucking good, and I was so fucking underwhelmed by the puzzles I played in Breath of the Wild that I'm really just more focused on this game in a weird sort of way. But I'm sure Zelda will be great. I'm not gonna diss Zelda or anything like that. And Zelda's gonna be much, 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 much bigger and much longer. But you know, I think if you discount this game, you are doing yourself a huge disservice. Unless you're like Steve and you just fucking hate puzzles, I think you need to play this game. This could be this year's Ori and the Blind Forest. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll see you on the channel. Later, dudes.